Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hard Cut Podcast, where we enjoy filmmaking, viewing, and discussing. I'm Tyler Edward, and I'm joined today with none other than my father.
Hello.
Warren Pasbrig, Zeke Pasbrig.
Pick one.
And stick with it. I'll be calling him Dad. So today we are going to be talking through the Evil Dead Trilogy. We've been waiting to do this for a long time.
Yes.
I specifically have been waiting to do this for a long time. I watched the series for the first time, I think like 4 or 5 months ago, and then immediately rewatched all three of them like back to back again. I was blown away that I've never seen these, and then when I did, I was super impressed by them.
Yes.
But yeah, we've been meaning to do this for a while, so I'm glad we're finally sitting down and talking to it.
And I've actually got one question and one comment before we kind of dive into it.
Okay.
So my comment is I'm very pleased and appreciative of your love of older movies.
Yeah.
Because technically this was kind of before my time. I mean, this came out when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
And even some of the older movies we've talked about, like The Omen and going back to like Psycho, that's before my time. And so I'm very surprised that you like movies that are before my time and my time. And the second thing is my question is, why did you choose me, your old man, to come on here and talk about the Evil Dead?
There's actually, it's so frustrating because none of my friends like horror. None of them like horror. And
old?
Well, yeah, I guess. But I mean, Alex, you kind of know Alex, but he's been on the podcast so many times, and he'll be watching this, and he'll be like, so mad that I'm talking about him, but he doesn't like horror movies, and I've tried to get him to do horror movies.
What is wrong with you? Come
on, bro.
Some of the best lines are in horror movies.
I know. But I mean, Noah likes horror movies. We just haven't dove into them as much, and I think for me, it's very specific. Like, I have phases where I go through different decades, I feel like, of horror movies, but like I've been on my 80s kick for so long, and like there aren't many of my friends that want to like watch 80s horror movies, and that's I totally understand that. But you asking me that is actually a perfect lead up. I had something prepared for you, and it's not necessarily like a big thing, it's just like a random little thing.
Okay.
So me talking about horror movies is cool because what I was going to say is you got me into horror movies, easily the first person who got me into them. Do you remember what the very first horror movie we watched together was?
Wow.
Because I do, and it's a shocking movie, and it is not a shocking movie, but like it's a really intense one for little like 9-year-old Tyler to start on. But it's a good one. It's a classic. I'll give you that.
I think I know, and I'm surprised you remember. Was it Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Mm-mm.
Oh, what was it?
It was The Shining. We watched The Shining together in the basement. It was actually, I think Joey technically had us watch it. Maybe, I don't know. He had like some sort of birthday party with a friend, and they all watched The Shining, and then we watched The Shining in the basement.
And how old were you?
I was like 9 or 10.
Oh, dumb am I?
I was gonna say, which is crazy that's my first horror movie.
Oh, no.
But and then immediately after that, we just like started watching so many, and Joey, Mom, and I watched a bunch of the Paranormal Activity movies. But then as it went on, I feel like you and I just really started watching a ton of horror movies. So
okay, well, when did we watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I don't remember when we watched Texas Chainsaw together, but I need to do a rewatch on that. And I also have only seen, I've seen more than the original, but I haven't seen the sequels of the original. Like I've seen the original, and there's like 2 or 3 reboot remakes. I've seen all those.
Okay,
but I never saw like Texas Chainsaw 2 or 3 or whatever. I don't know how many there are. But
there's a bunch. I actually IMDb'd or Googled it, and there's a ton. Which, I mean, some of them I haven't seen because I didn't even know they existed.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another franchise.
Yeah. Evil Dead, though.
Yes.
So the first one came out in 1981. I think. Did it theatrically? There's like confusion on that
there is.
everywhere online.
I'm glad you asked because I took some notes.
Yeah.
So from my research is that it was filmed in 81, but it didn't have a theatrical release until 83.
Okay. That makes sense because, everywhere I've seen it has either said 81 or 83.
Okay. Now, here's the weird part. I don't know if you know this, but in America, it was rated NC-17.
Oh, no, I didn't.
And in other countries, it was rated X.
Which makes sense for the time period. Because NC-17 seems crazy if you consider what that was for the 80s.
Yes. I mean,
that seems like a low rating.
Yes.
For the time period.
And the thing that blows me away is I honestly do not remember when I saw it. But it was definitely before 86 because I could not drive yet. I know that. And I have a feeling that you've met Gary, my friend Gary. He and I spent a lot of time together as kids. We watched a lot of 80s horror movies. I have a feeling that we rented it. Well, my mom would have had to rent it, but I have a feeling that your Grandma D rented it for us. So here we are, a 15 and a 14-year-old watching an NC-17 movie. So yeah, that's kind of a trip. And I mean, it obviously it found more life later in VHS in the mid 80s than it did in this theatrical release.
I feel like, I mean, obviously I was not alive during the time, but just like based on what I've seen and what I've read about, like I feel like it didn't get iconic until way later on, especially because of the trilogy.
Yes.
I don't think the Evil Dead, it's just called The Evil Dead. I don't think that necessarily became like really known or really a big thing until the sequels and everything.
I agree.
Kind of coming out with it.
And to that point, I think when you mentioned the Evil Dead, I think a lot of people actually think of part 2, not knowing. Because the campiness and the humor and the cheesy animation was all part 2.
Yeah.
Where, so that's what you think. And Bruce Campbell with all his one-liners. Where the first one, for the time, was scary as hell.
Yeah.
Looking back, I rewatched it again before this podcast, but still, even, 40 some odd years later, it was a good movie. I mean, yes, it was low budget, but keeping that in mind, rewatching, I was like, wow, this is really good.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff they were doing, some of the cinematography. It was cheesy, but it was so low budget.
Yeah.
And so going back to that, that's why I think a lot of people in their head, when you say Evil Dead, they think, oh, it's cheesy.
Yep.
That's part 2.
And like, the reason I was so hooked on the series was because of its low budget quality. The second I watched the first one, I went in not really knowing anything about it. I've told you about this, but I had ordered a random package of horror merch like 4 or 5 years prior to even seeing the movie, and in that package it was like a mystery box. It was an Army of Darkness shirt in Chinese, and I was like, I didn't know what it was, but I wore it all the time, like as like PJs before bed. So I guess technically that was my introduction to it, but other than that, I didn't know anything about the trilogy. And so when I watched it for the very first time, I was almost confused because I'm like, there's been all this hype, and then I start it and it's like low budget, but then I got like 4 or 5 minutes in. Oh, the horror starts early. It's like 10 minutes in, really. And I immediately, like, as a young aspiring filmmaker, I was hooked so fast because, like, it is cheap and there are, like, definitely bad things about it technically, but at the same time, it's like their budget was crazy low.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because from what I've read, even in 1981, this was not much at all. 375,000.
Yep.
And
it's a crazy low amount for them.
Yeah. And from what I understand, a lot of that was the cabin rental up in Michigan.
Yep. And they actually stayed. So I read they stayed there. They all lived in that cabin during the filming, which honestly, like, I bet it was hell at points, but that would be a really fun experience. I think, like, thinking as a filmmaker, like, you're just kind of, you're living in it when you're up there, and like like basically trapped there just filming the movie. But yeah, I mean, the low budgetness of it was what brought me in. I just, it was so cool to see innovative ways that are now used because of the Evil Dead.
Yes.
Like there's so many tropes or whatever things that you see in Hollywood films and blood and gore, and it's like you can relate a lot of that back to the Evil Dead.
Well, and that's going off what you're saying in my notes that I took too. There were a few things in here, and I mean, if we want to jump in, we can. My notes are all random.
Yep.
But there were some things because I really studied it when I rewatched it recently, because I've seen it 7, 8, 9, 10 times. That I assume were not necessarily done for the first time in this movie. However, they did it very well, and it made me kind of notice. I'm like, oh, that, for instance, there's a scene where the camera is behind the pendulum of the clock.
Oh yeah, the angles are so creative.
And again, I'm sure that's been done before, but it stood out to me that it's like, that's really cool.
Well, and then I even remember there's a shot in, I want to say it's the Evil Dead, but my mind could be mixing it up with Evil Dead 2. There's a shot where it's like the camera's like in the ceiling and it's like doing this long kind of dolly forward but pointed down while like deadites are attacking, and it's that was something that struck me too, is that part of it was so creative. And obviously the very iconic like camera through the woods.
Yes.
Which that started like, that was what is probably like so many POV shots kind of go back to, is just that fast pace, like cutting in and out of like intense action and then like back to normal. Just the camera through the woods is so iconic.
Do you know how they did that?
I've seen different things on it, but they used some sort of box or something, and 2 people carried it and ran with it.
Yes, that's what I've read too. Because you can tell there's no dolly. For one thing, some of the shots are like a half block long when they're running through the woods, and you would see the dolly because it's so hilly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've read that too. That they just had 2 guys running with a box,
which is so cool. Like that's part of the low budget thing. Is they just like they couldn't afford a dolly. What do? They just chuck it in a box and run with a camera.
Exactly.
But yeah, I guess we haven't really necessarily given an overview of what the Evil Dead trilogy is. So for those who have never watched it, obviously spoilers ahead. You always know this with my podcasts, but Evil Dead. The Evil Dead is a trilogy that was done by Sam Raimi. He was the writer of it, and very, very low budget, cheesy 80s, like it's a mix of slasher, zombies, cabin in the woods type style. And it is very well known for its comedic stuff and its cheesiness. Kind of because that's what they leaned into after the first one.
Remind me, I got something to tell you about the comedic stuff.
Yeah. But so that's kind of what it's known for. And then the third one was more of a medieval vibe, but it has such a big impact on horror films. It has such a big like there's remakes, there's sequels, there's a musical, there's a TV show. Like it has everything going for it. And it's very classic and very easy to watch, as in there's not like a lot of depth, or there's not like intense themes.
It's just fun.
It's just fun, and it's extremely entertaining.
Yes.
And if you're in any way interested in horror, like these are a requirement to watch as a horror fan.
So you're talking about the comedy part. I read an interview with, I can't remember who was doing the interviewing, but Sam Raimi, he did the whole thing, right? He directed it and he wrote it, right?
He wrote and directed it. I believe he co-wrote some of them, but yes, he wrote and directed.
And his brother's in, I think, all 3.
He's in all of them in different ways, and
so Sam's background was comedy writing. I don't know if you knew that.
I think I knew that. Yeah.
And so again, going back to the whole 1 and 2, so after I don't know how successful 1 was, because it really wasn't.
Yeah.
Again, it got a lot of life years later in home video. So he had a higher budget, and
for 2 and 3. Yeah.
Yep. And he purposely wrote more comedy in the second one because he came from a writing comedy background.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So The Evil Dead was kind of it was, first of all, it was his debut film. Extremely impressive. His debut feature film. I read he did short films. But it's interesting though, he like going through comedy and then taking a big swing and saying, for my first film, I'm going to try and make a horror, and he succeeded.
Yes, his first major film.
Yeah.
Because some of his short films before that were comedies.
Yep. But yeah, I think like this trilogy is what got him started, which is really crazy to think about, because most people nowadays, I mean, people who know film and people who study it, like they're going to know, Sam Raimi, Evil Dead. But I think to a general audience, you think Sam Raimi, you think Spider-Man, and you think Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. You think his like random little superhero involvement movies, but he did Oz the Great and Powerful too. There's some random ones he's done in there, but it's so interesting that he kind of turned to the superhero. He's just done so many genres, and he's always picked one and stuck with it for a long time and then switched to something new.
Yes.
Like it's like he did Spider-Man in a trilogy, he did Evil Dead in a trilogy. Like, yeah.
And of course, those of you that have seen the Spider-Man trilogy, the original 20
with Bruce Campbell. Yeah.
Bruce Campbell is in all three, and Bruce Campbell is of course Ash from the Evil Dead. The other thing is, what's Peter's Uncle Ben?
Yeah.
The car that he drives in the Spider-Man movies.
Is it the Oldsmobile?
Is the Oldsmobile from the Evil Dead movies and the Army of Darkness movie.
I was talking with Alex 2 times ago on the podcast about rewatching the Spider-Man movies, and now I like want to rewatch them even more now that I've seen Evil Dead through like the whole trilogy 2 times over. There's probably so many details I didn't notice as a kid.
One of these days we'll have to go in and like, rewatch the Spider-Mans and type in, Evil Dead Easter eggs or something. Because there's a bunch.
Yeah.
There's more than the
And that was the same thing with Multiverse of Madness. I haven't seen it, but I know Alex watched it and he was talking about, they had some random homage. And it was Bruce Campbell in the background, like hitting himself or something, like his hand was possessed again.
From number 2.
Yeah. I wrote a paper on that, on the Evil Dead 2 and the hand scene. This year for my college writing course I took, we were asked to do an analysis paper, and it could be on any material we wanted. And I said, I'm going to analyze a scene from the Evil Dead 2, and it was the scene where he chops off his hand with the chainsaw.
What was the vibe of the paper? I don't quite understand.
The class we were doing was comedy writing, technically. So like every single paper I made, there was always like I had some jokes or whatever else. So it was really fun class to do. And the first one I did, I don't remember. The first one I did was a personal story, but then the second one was I made it about Evil Dead, and then the third one was about horror movies. I just love writing and talking about them. Okay. But yeah, so I wrote a paper analyzing the Evil Dead 2 scene and just talking about it. Get? I got it. I passed. I passed and did very well. Yeah, it was super fun to write. Nice. And I included obviously like my personal connection to it and everything about it. Okay. But yeah, Evil Dead 1, cheap, low budget, first horror, and then it got popular, so they decided to do a sequel. You got more?
Well, my notes are only on one, so
okay. Yeah,
and again, they're just random. There's no rhyme or reason, and I'm sure I forgot some of them already.
That's fine. Let's go through them, because I might have some random.
All right, and some of these we've already talked about, but again, for all the fans of old cheesy 80s and 70s horror movies, did you recognize the poster in the basement?
I was just going to say that. There's 2 instances where he has a fun relationship with Wes Craven.
Yes.
Because
they kind of got their start at the same time.
Yeah, they got their start at the same time, and they kind of appreciated each other back and forth in their movies. I think the first instance was downstairs in the basement, right by the Necronomicon, The Hills Have Eyes in the background, which I still haven't seen. I started it, but I didn't get all the way through it. I don't remember. I had to go or do something, but I would love to actually sit down and watch that one. For those of you who don't know, Wes Craven is very iconic in the horror community. He does a bunch of the Scream movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, A New Nightmare.
That's probably his biggest, what he's most known for.
Yeah. Have you seen Red Eye? Red Eye's kind of, it's okay.
No, I have not.
It's like it's fine.
Okay.
And then the second instance with Wes Craven, so he did that in the first Evil Dead, the Hills Have Eyes in the background, and then in Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a girl watching Evil Dead.
Evil Dead, yep.
Which is so fun.
Yep.
And then in number 2, in the cabin, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a pair of Freddy Krueger's gloves as well, too.
I don't think I've noticed it, but I remember someone pointing it out. Maybe I saw it on a YouTube clip or something, or maybe from you.
So they had a really fun back and forth relationship when they first got started out, which, it's very, very fun that filmmakers do that and just kind of attribute other things to each other.
Gotcha. So these next few are, I don't want to say they're a thumbs down, but they're just funny. And a couple of them have gone on to be just so cliches in many movies.
Yeah.
And the biggest one for me was that cabin, they pull up and it's tiny.
Yeah.
And they open it up and it's huge. There's like 4 bedrooms. The walls are so wide that Bruce can get in the walls and run from the Deadites in the walls.
I would be so curious to see what was not a part of the cabin.
Right.
Like what was filmed elsewhere or inside a different location. Yeah.
The other thing too that I kind of laughed at was when they were outside at night and they'd show the cabin, the light was so like freaking bright. They were
blasting their
and
lights,
it's like if you were inside, you would get a sunburn. It was so bright.
The different shots when they're silhouetted at the door and the fog is coming through. Like in theory, it's so cool, but then you watch it and it's like, how are you not like blind?
Yes.
Like it's like they're just blaring all the lights.
Well, and fog. I mean, there's so much fog in that movie.
Yeah.
And it's
probably got hard to breathe.
Well,
I've used fog machines and plenty of stuff, and it gets hard to breathe.
I mean, it comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
And just tons of fog.
It's part of just like the very classic like woods, like horror, like anytime you're in the middle of the woods, there's like the crazy moonlight coming down and the low fog always like hitting the ground. So they really leaned into that.
Yep. The other thing that kind of cracked me up was sorry, I don't remember. Other than Ash, I don't know the character's name.
The names are irrelevant, but they all die.
The girl that gets
by the tree.
Yeah.
That was a controversial scene.
Yes, let's just say the tree has relations with her. So she comes in and she's all messed up.
Yeah.
And Ash is like, "We'll go to bed." So she does. It's like, wait, you were just raped by a tree, and now you're sleeping like nothing, and half the people around you are turning into zombies or whatever you want to call them, because Deadites. And so she's sleeping. I'm like, well, how are you sleeping?
That's so funny. Regarding the tree scene though, that got backlash. And Sam Raimi talked about it in interviews, and like he has been like, I was young at the time. I like didn't know what I was doing, and like he's apologized for it, but at the same time, he was like the only purpose of it in the film was to scare and to disturb, which is what it does. At the end of the day, it's what it does. And the 2013 remake does it way more intensely.
Yes, that
like
was
really
disturbing. That one, I just kind of sat in the theater. It was just like, my toes were curling. I'm just like, this is uncomfortable.
That one's a lot harder to watch than the original one. But I mean, it got backlash, and I get it. At the same time, it was the 80s, and people were just trying to scare the crap out of other people. So, but
all right, maybe you'll know because I forgot this one. There was a sound effect from the chains on a table. And I can't remember why I wrote that down. Do you have any idea why I would have?
I think I know the sound effect you're talking about, but I don't remember like the reason it's there or like its place in the story. But I do remember I remember chains.
Well, there's chains on the cellar door.
The cellar
Yes, but well, maybe I'll have to watch it again and figure it out.
Another watch through.
Yes. We talked about the camera shots, some of the angles. Right here you mentioned it, the overhead.
Over the head,
yep.
And then under the stairs as well. Yep. Yeah, that's always so cool too. One of my favorite shots that like honestly I've seen some films recreate it, and like in my next feature, I really want to try and do it at one point because, again, like I was saying, filmmakers paying homage to other filmmakers and like having like that relationship with Wes Craven and stuff. Like I love that, and I love when films. Some people would look at that and be like, "Oh, you're ripping it off." I think there's a fine line of people who would look at that and be like, "You are directly paying homage and appreciating this other one." What I would like to do in a film is when they do it in all three. I think Ash goes into the basement and he looks forward, and then the camera just slowly circles, it just does this whole like 360 pan around the entire room and eventually comes back to Ash.
Yep.
And it is so cool.
Yes.
And it's like the most tense thing.
Yep. I remember that one. That was good too.
I'd love to recreate something like that.
Oh, now here's something that was not a cliche. This was actually quite different. And this even goes back to like horror movies of the 40s, 30s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Is the main, not the main character, but I think it was that the term "last girl" was that.
Oh yes,
was coined. I think
Alien.
Was it Alien?
Oh, I was gonna say Alien.
I thought it was Halloween.
Alien was 79. Halloween was 78, wasn't it? Yeah.
But
either way,
same
time period.
Well, it wasn't a girl. I mean, you go back to Dracula. Creature from the Black Lagoon, it was always a woman was the last, either the last victim or the last survivor. Yeah. And this one, it was Ash, a dude. Yeah. And I just found that very interesting as well.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see, like, horror movies are they've gotten to a point now where there's a lot of them that are really unpredictable and some that you know every single move that's going to happen.
Yes.
But I feel like there's been this general, like, idea of there always has to be like one last survivor. Like in a lot of horror movies I've seen, like it's like they have their main group, slashers mainly.
Yeah.
Like horror movies like this, there's always like you were saying, there's either a girl or a guy sometimes, but I feel like there's always one at the end. It's interesting to see when movies have like either a group or like completely random. I don't know. That's a side tangent, but yeah. Yep. Anything else for notes?
No, that's all I've got.
Because we could go along into number 2.
Well, I have a question about that, and I just watched them. I don't know, a month or two ago.
Yep, we watched Army of Darkness together a month ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
The book, the Necronomicon, again in the original movie, the first movie,
The Book of the Dead.
Yeah, they never say the name of the book.
Yeah, I don't know when that got.
I think it was
the second one. The intro, the big intro at the beginning.
And the daughter of the guy that took the book from wherever he found it.
That's what she was talking about as well.
Yep. Didn't Ash burn it in the first one? He throws it in the fire.
He does, I think.
So
I can't remember if they explained it or if... Well, did it stop burning? Either I don't remember necessarily what that part happened. The end of the first one is the long POV of the woods, and then it ends going right in Ash's face as if he's getting killed. So I think he threw in the fire, but I think by that final shot, we're supposed to kind of be like, oh, it didn't actually burn.
Okay.
And maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
I would have to rewatch the ending to tell, but...
Well, so, and that's, okay, well, are we moving on to 2?
Yeah, we can ease into it.
So, that's where I get so lost, is because basically the first movie and the second movie
they're kind of the
same. And so, of course, I went and I did a little reading and researching, and it's on the internet, so it has to be true.
Everything on the internet is true.
The interview, again, with Sam that I read, is because he had more money.
Yeah.
He does not, it's not
like the first one.
Well,
not but
yeah. And
he wanted to make it better.
He wanted to make it better. So he never called it a sequel.
Yeah.
He said it was a reimagining or a retelling.
Yep.
Hence all the extra comedy in it.
Yeah.
Which after reading that made sense because Ash, he just went through it in one. You'd think he'd know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. He's, because again, spoiler alert, at the end of 1, the bridge is out, so there's no way to get back to wherever they're going.
And he just goes there in the second one.
In the beginning of the second one, it's the same thing. They're in the same Oldsmobile, and they drive over the bridge to the cabin. So,
and I also just think it's so funny that every single one in the trilogy has a different person playing the girlfriend. Like, for no reason. It's always just a different girl. Like, the girl at the S-Mart or whatever, and the last one is different. She's different in this one, and in the first one, they're just always different. But there's always a need to include that for no reason. But, I mean, yeah, so the second one, quick overview, is basically just like, it is a reimagining, I guess is probably the best term, because it's not a reboot and it's also not a sequel.
No,
it's the craziest thing ever. And when I watched it, I was very baffled at the beginning, because I'm like, why aren't we just picking up where we left off? And so the whole first like 10 minutes is just recapping the entire first one, but played by a different actor. Well, the girlfriend's played by a different actor, and there are no friends either. It's just the two in the car.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just like this like just explaining to you what happened, and then it gives a bit more lore on the Necronomicon. I think that's when they call it the Necronomicon.
I think so as well. Quite remember.
And then finally we catch up, and the camera is like going in on that POV to Bruce Campbell, and it takes him. He's like circling in the air and doing these really random things, and then he like crashes down and lands into the puddle, and then we're finally into the second one.
Yes.
And it's like we were saying, it's basically just the first one, but with different plot points. And there is like a B plot. There's the whole like the daughter of the one guy who found the Necronomicon.
Yep.
So,
well, it's just more is explained.
Yeah. It feels like they kind of found their footing a bit. They had got reception. They're like, okay, we know what is good and we know what not to do. So there's a bit more of a story. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still just everyone gets trapped in the cabin and they try to fend off. What I like about this one is they teased it in the first one a bit with like the stop motion, but the second one really leans into the stop motion. And
again, the gore of number 2 is amped up even more. And the humor of it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, going back to my friend Gary, who you've met many times, we always talked about it. The eye flying through the air into the girl's mouth under the stairs. Yes. So if you've seen it, you know what we're talking about. Oh, we laughed our butts off, but at the same time, it's really gross. And the actual, I don't know if that would be a camera angle.
Isn't it like the POV of the eye?
Yes, and you can see like the tendons. It looks like a tadpole because it's got this strain, so it's just flying through the air and right into the girl's mouth.
The second one is super, super funny.
Yes,
and I was dying through all of it.
Yes.
I'm so mad because I watched the first one just like on a computer because I was working a shift at the studio, so I wasn't whatever. So I just watched it on a computer, and I was like, these don't deserve a computer screen. These deserve a TV. So I made sure to watch the second and third one on a TV. But it is so funny, and it's so hard for me to like pick favorites. But I feel like I would have to pick if I were to only have one from the trilogy, it would probably be the second one because it is the most like this is the best representation of the trilogy that there is because it's the first one, but it combines the second and third like slapstick comedy feel while still having some horror.
I can
there
see
are
that.
some scary parts.
Oh yeah. Well, again, it's like a kind of a total remake of the first one.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to agree. We almost have to exclude number 3 though, because that one really wasn't a horror. That was kind of a full-on comedy based in what year? 13.
It's like the 1300s,
but it's like
crazy. It's medieval.
It's like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table.
Which is crazy because yes, we do agree on that.
Yes.
At the same time, when I watched the trilogy, the third one was my favorite. Like that one was the most comedy, and so there were some jokes that were over the top though. And you could tell like they had the success of the second one. They tried a little too intense
hard.
on but That being said, I really, really loved the third one because I'm just a big fan of the medieval vibe from like anything. However, on a rewatch, I would agree. It's like second's definitely,
because to me the third one they tried too hard, especially with Campbell's one-liners, which
there are
some of them are great.
Hey, she bitch.
Yeah, but in 2, you know, I just thought it was great. You know, groovy.
Oh, that's probably the most iconic line in all of cinema for me. Like, there's no better line. And I remember watching it for the first time, and just I could not stop laughing, and I was just by myself too, and it was so funny, because that was the shift in the film too. To the second he said groovy, I think they were probably in the writer's room, and they were probably just like, okay, we're done. It's all just like comedy one-liners from here, because like that was really like he put a freaking chainsaw on his arm and said groovy. Like that was the turning point where it was just total comedy. And like not much going.
And when he's punching himself, I mean, for those that you haven't seen it, he gets bit. So basically, his hand gets possessed. And it starts to grow. So he's constantly, he cut off his hand to stop it to grow, and he's fighting himself because it's in him, and he's trying to get it out of him.
And that's where the poster comes from too, of the middle finger. Have you seen the middle finger poster?
I don't think I have.
Oh, it's my favorite poster. It's like they kind of coined it that one little bit. It's just like it's his possessed hand just sitting in blackness, and it's literally just his possessed hand flipping him off.
Oh, it's the shot from the movie.
This is one of the posters.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not necessarily in the movie.
It's not the poster.
But
it's not from the movie.
But yeah, there is a shot where the hand kind of scurries across and stops and flips him off.
Which is so funny too, because it was fun to see all the different practical ways they achieved it and the ways they achieved it with like stop motion.
Yes.
Because one of the best things about the whole trilogy, like, yes, they are cheesy effects, and this was Alex's biggest complaint with it. He watched the third one with me, and that's when they really were cheesy on effects.
And again, that wasn't overly horror movie.
But he watched the third one with me, and he was like, I liked it, but I just couldn't get past any of the effects. And I think for me, fair, at the same time, I really like seeing the different like ways that they blend it, because sometimes they use like green screen with puppets, or sometimes it's stop motion or something. Like there's just so many different ways that they try to approach.
Oh, there was claymation as
and,
well. You know, was it
the girl dancing, the naked skeleton dancing? That was
out in the woods.
Jarring.
That was really strange too.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So going back to the claymation and the effects you're talking about, do you think they used too much in part 2?
I don't think they used too much in part 2, because I think they were first discovering what it was. So it was there's a lot that me as a filmmaker, I just look past, because I'm like, oh, I understand you have to do that. In number 3, it's excessive. I think it's very excessive in number 3.
And I guess I'm thinking of the part where the girlfriend, it doesn't matter if it's the girlfriend or someone else, but when the neck grows and it's just this
that's
weird,
cheesy.
I was just like, well, this doesn't make sense.
That one's a bit rough.
Like, you know, it's fiction, doesn't have any sense. But but I was just like, okay, that's a little too cheesy.
Well, and the other thing that's funny is you can tell like they have like these different prosthetics or costumes or whatever that they built. And so you see in one shot, it like rises up to become something. And then in the next shot, it's like completely formed into something that's like different than the previous shot, which is funny.
Yes.
It's like they don't really ease into it. They kind of just shove into it with a bunch of the stop motion stuff. But
which, jumping back to the first one, there's a scene where one of the ladies is attacking Ash, and this cracked me up. So they've got the prosthetics on, and then they switch camera angles, and you can see it's just someone in a mask with a horrible, horrible wig.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know if I know the specific one, but there's definitely parts where you can just see through the effects.
Well, and
fully.
the blood.
The blood is so like pink.
Well,
like it's not. It's just really bright.
Well, it kills me
doesn't
how
look like blood.
like in both of them, they'll be, hacking something up or chainsaw, and it'll just be, whomever will just be drenched.
Yeah.
The next scene, there's
fine.
a few drops.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not much consistency throughout any of these, but like that's why it's so fun, is because they're not asking you as a viewer to like sit down and mentally prepare and be like super analytical or serious. They're just asking you to be entertained.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you are.
Yep.
And that's what matters with all of these films, which is really fun. So we talked about the brother is in all three of them. The brother plays Henrietta, in the second one, the big nasty grandma lady.
The one that looks waterlogged. Yeah. Yes. The one that's spinning
up top. He's in that suit.
Okay.
And so that's the brother, which is really cool. But there were, I don't know if it was a video or an interview or what. I saw something on it, and like the suit was so hot. And so at the end of like any shoot, he would like open his thing and just so much water, just like sweat pouring out. And like that was talked about as like, we're making like some of the grossest, most disturbing movies ever. This is still grosser. Like it's just
the real life stuff. Yes.
The puddles of sweat that were pouring out of that. But
now, was he in any of the Spider-Man movies?
He was, yeah. He was always cast in minor parts though. But because I recognized him in the Evil Dead as one of the extras or guys from Spider-Man. That's like how I knew about him.
Okay.
But I don't remember if he's like consistently in them or what his deal is with them necessarily. I just know he's in them.
Gotcha.
But that's about it. And yeah, like we talked about, Sam Raimi plays the Knight at the end of the second one, I want to say. He doesn't come because they redo the third one before they get back into it too.
Yes.
So he's only at the end of the second one, and he's like swinging, and he's like a hero from the sky or I don't know, something random.
Yes.
But yeah, I wonder if I don't know if I have much else on number 2. I mean, it was kind of. I think that's the one everyone knows.
Yes.
It's the one that's funny and scary, so people like to
chainsaw on the arm. It's got the eye flying into the girl's
There's
mouth.
a lot of very specific little iconic parts to it.
I mean, he fights himself.
That too. Yeah, the mirror stuff is actually really impressive. The mirror stuff is very
for the
cool.
mid-80s.
I didn't know how they did it. Like, I would be interested to look into that. But there were definitely shots that I was like, oh, that could be a double, or like they could be playing with, but there were also many points where I was like, I have no idea how they pulled that off. They're really cool mirror shots. But yeah, then at the end of the second movie, after all the Deadites are fought off and yada yada, they recite this chant from the Necronomicon, and it opens a portal. And it's the most cheesy effect too. It's just like they're clearly in a green screen behind them, and it's just like it's sucking everything in. Everyone dies in all of them. Spoiler alert. For the most part, the characters
except Ash.
Yeah, in 1 and 2, everyone besides Ash dies.
Yes. Well, we don't know in 1 because we assume he died.
We thought he died, and then
he's back to normal.
Came right back. But yeah, so the portal sucks him in, and then he falls down. Him, the chainsaw, his shotgun, and his Oldsmobile, everything you need to survive the medieval 1300s. They plop down into this vast desert, and a bunch of knights come to greet them, and then it kind of transitions into the third one.
Yes.
And the third one is called Army of Darkness. Originally, it was titled Medieval Dead. Why didn't they stick with that?
Kidding! I did not know that.
It's crazy, and I don't. The studio didn't like it. I think it might have been Universal Studios, but they didn't like the original title, which is Medieval Dead.
Yeah,
that could not be more perfect.
It's Evil Dead mid.
It's crazy that they didn't go for that. But that was.
We should check that out. I did not know that.
But yeah, because that was the original title, and then I read that studio execs basically were like, not working, something more generic, and they switched it to Army of Darkness, which seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
To me.
Well, I would think you'd want to keep the whole Evil Dead in
that's what's
theme.
That's what
in
it's
the
iconic
in the third one,
because that is the only movie, musical, and or TV series that does not have the words Evil Dead in it.
You are right.
Only one. And Every single other thing has Evil Dead or The Evil Dead or Evil Dead Rise or whatever. That's the only, even Ash versus Evil Dead. All of them have it. And then this one's just Army of Darkness.
Wow. No,
It's
that would
crazy.
have made a lot more sense.
But yeah, Army of Darkness is interesting because it's probably, I would say, the least liked by most people. And it's, again, it's not a bad movie.
No.
And I still enjoy it.
Well, going back, we were even talking about it. Of the three, well, I don't want to say it's the weakest, but of the three, it's not my favorite because it really, I mean, yeah, we find out where the book comes from. That's really about it.
Yeah.
But it's not a horror movie to me. It's a Dungeons and Dragons, King Arthur battling the knights. But as a standalone movie,
it's pretty freaking good.
Funny.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
really funny.
It's and yeah, they overdo it with the one-liners for Ash.
Yeah.
But you've
grown used to it.
Yes, from the second one
where it's
so
acceptable.
they have so many more. This is my boomstick. His gun.
Yeah. I also love. It's just such a stupid random comedy moment, but like he does that whole rant about his boomstick and then instantly cut to the next scene and girls are feeding him grapes as he's like sprawled out, like everyone wants him and he's like the most worshipped person in all the land in the course of like 2 seconds.
Well, isn't it because he escaped the pit with the Deadites and he's like the only one to ever do that?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like it's just so funny. But the second one or the third one, there was like there was a lot of reshooting that I know about. Specifically 2 different scenes. The first one was right after he's being like fed grapes and stuff, a Deadite attacks. Remember it comes out of nowhere. It's literally just like they're having the normal scene and then all of a sudden this girl in the corner turns around and she freaks out and screams, and that's where he says, "Hey, she bitch," and then like flips the gun, flips his boomstick out and kills her. That originally wasn't in it, but they put it back in because apparently the studio or audience reception or whatever didn't like the lack of Deadites. Like that, and other than the skeletons, that and the one in the pit are really the only Deadites we see in the whole movie. Like, which is weird because they're what the series has built up as like the villains or whatever, and then they kind of just throw them out of the third one. And it's the skeletons.
As in the first 2, didn't Sheila, the love interest, turn into a Deadite? The girl in the red dress.
I can't... In the third one?
Yeah.
Sheila was only at S-Mart in the third one. Are you talking about his love interest in the third one isn't the same as his love interest in the other one because it's 1300?
Right.
But yes,
then I'm getting my names wrong. But yeah, the only love interest in the third one, she turns into one as well.
Yeah,
okay,
she does.
That's right.
And then there's another one-liner. What does he say? Honey, you got real ugly. It's so funny because they're hit or miss. The one-liners some of them are super hilarious and some aren't. But yeah, that was a reshoot that they did, and it was because of there was a lack of inclusion of the Deadites, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I mean, if you go into an Evil Dead movie, you're gonna want to see Deadites.
Wait a minute.
There's
There's a lack of inclusion, but let's not call the movie Medieval Dead. What?
I'm baffled by the Medieval Dead one.
Yeah.
Maybe someone needs to fact check me on that. But that's just what I saw online. And as we know, everything online is true.
Yes, it is.
But and then the other reshoot, which we know about, is the ending. Remember we watched the alternate ending?
Remind me.
So the ending of the movie, you can tell it's a reshoot too, because it's much more modernized and Bruce Campbell honestly looks a bit older and a bit different. The ending of Army of Darkness that you can watch as an audience is Bruce Campbell went back to his reality.
Yes.
And he's in S-Mart.
Yep.
And a Deadite comes out and he kills the crap out of it.
Yes.
Originally, what was shot is it was a whole extra like 5 to 10 minutes of Ash going into this cave, going in with his Oldsmobile. Yeah.
Now I'm
and
remembering
he
it.
like he did the chant or whatever, and he was like waiting for it to work, and he finally thought it worked, and then he went outside, and it was like a dystopian future.
Yes.
So there might have been plans to set it up for more movies,
or the studio didn't like it.
And I think it was probably a bit of both.
Yes.
I'm sure Raimi would have loved to continue the trilogy, but at some point you got to let it die.
Yes.
But yeah, and he had like this big bushy beard and like long hair,
Yep.
and he went out.
Yep.
He was like, "No!" I think he just screamed "no."
Yes.
And very cliche, cheesy, but funny. And yeah, it's just a vast landscape of like dystopian future. So it sent him into the future, and then the movie just ended.
Yep.
So it was originally supposed to be kind of a more depressing end and more like open-ended, ambiguous, but got turned into him back at the S-Mart.
Well, and that kind of worked out because that set up the series that came out 5 years ago
at S-Mart.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so interesting too that they don't reveal anything about Ash until the third one. Like that he's a S-Mart shopper or like anything about his life at all. It's literally just like he's a guy going to this cabin in the woods. But then in the third one, they're finally like, maybe he should have depth. So they give him an S-Mart badge and call it good.
Did you watch any of?
No,
Ash versus the Evil Dead?
I would like to. I would really like to. Also, it got canceled though, didn't it?
Well, it's been a few years now. I think there were 3 seasons.
Yeah, I don't think it got renewed though.
I'm trying to remember though the ending, if it was like a cliffhanger ending that there was no answer, or if it made sense. But the series is. If you liked Army of Darkness, or if you liked all 3, you'd like the series because again, it goes back to the campiness, the one-liners, and there's a lot of deadites. There's more explanation about the book.
Yep.
And there is, I wouldn't call it a backstory, but there's a backstory on Ash. I mean, you meet his dad.
That's so foreign to me. Like the concept of Ash having a life is the weirdest thing because I just know him as who he is in the Evil Dead trilogy.
And there's other, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's other, it's not an Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
But there's other people from whatever year the Army of Darkness is in.
Yeah.
Whether they're demons, whether they're spirits, whether they're knights, that are also, they come back and it totally expands, and it's not in a bad way. Like I know a lot of for me,
prequels or TV shows
or even sequels getting so out there, Friday the 13th part 29 that it ruins the original. It doesn't do that. It just, again, it's not an origin story per se, but you learn a lot more about the book about I already said it. And it's fun. Again, it is just mindless entertainment. There's no politics. There's no trying to save the world. It's just cheesy, way, way, way too much blood, just like in the first 2.
Yeah, the amount of blood. Yeah, I don't know how much gallons of blood they went through.
And I had read, is it on here? Again, it's on Google, so it has to be true. I had read that at the time, that was the most fake blood of any movie.
Evil Dead or a different one?
Evil Dead.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make so much sense. I mean, Evil Dead 2 especially, which we're 87 at that point, so maybe it's like there's been a movie with more blood,
right.
But the whole
up
scene
to that
where
point,
shooting out of the cellar,
it's
just like flooding the whole place with blood, which is insane.
Yep.
I don't know if we said, but Army of Darkness came out in 1992, so it was the first 90s one. But like we said, it's kind of a bit more campy, a bit more cheesy, medieval approach. But you talking about the Evil Dead series, Ash vs. Evil Dead, is a good lead-in. I want to just quickly touch on the sequels or the remakes because I know you've seen some of them, or Evil Dead remake, right?
Well, how many were there? Just the 2?
Just the 2 so far. But then, like I said, there's the TV series and a musical, I guess, which I'm begging Sydney to go see it with me at some point. I want to see it so bad, and I have no concept of what it's like at all. I've seen nothing on it. I just know it exists.
Really?
And I want to go see it.
Well, I'm not a musical guy, but that I'd see.
It'd probably be pretty fun. But yeah, so the Evil Dead trilogy did very, very well. I'm so shocked that it didn't get a remake until 2013, honestly. Like, it's not that big of a time jump. It's 20 years basically since Army of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing, well, I mean, maybe more nowadays in Hollywood, we're very, everyone likes to remake everything like so off the bat. Like, we're getting the Jurassic World reboot only like 3 years after the last Jurassic World.
I think that's ridiculous.
It's a little crazy. Like, I'll still be there and I'll still watch it, but it is ridiculous. That being said, I'm quite surprised that an Evil Dead reboot didn't come out sooner. Second to that, I'm surprised they didn't do like a serious one, because Evil Dead, I think it wanted to be, but there was a shift. There was a tone shift where at the end, it like did try to be serious, but at the end, the final girl kept making like very sarcastic one-liner remarks.
Right. So, but at the same time, I thought it lacked the
comedy and the stupidity of
the
it.
First three.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I think they touched on it, but they didn't go full in. For me, I loved. This is random. Fede Alvarez, he directed the 2013 remake. I loved Alien Romulus, and I've seen Don't Breathe, and I liked it a lot. I did not like the Evil Dead remake. I was very let down by it because I was seeing all this hype about it and yada yada. Yep. And I watched it, and that's what it was for me is like I wanted the comedy or I wanted it to be serious. I didn't really want an in between, and it felt like it didn't know which direction it wanted to go.
And I'd have to agree. As a standalone movie, I don't know if it would have been any good, because, being a fan and seeing it originally in the 80s, you're comparing it to the original.
You're always yep.
And
there's no way it can live up to it.
And it's just like, I don't know how much of a classic Evil Dead is, but there's it's a classic, whether it's movies, whether it's books, whether it's music. Some things should just be left alone.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like, can you imagine if there was a Jaws remake?
I
don't know
I hope not. I hope not.
I mean, it's such a classic. All right. Again, is Evil Dead a classic? I don't know.
I think but nowadays I think we've been so far away for a while that it's enough to be considered classic.
It's underground. It's a cult classic. It was never huge in the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that the remake was such a departure, and it's like they just tried too hard. Again, going back to like the blood, how they overused it in the first two as somewhat of a comedic effect.
Mm-hmm.
Did you remember the scene where it's just spraying everywhere
in the first one, or in the
remake?
Yeah,
and
at the end too, it's literally raining blood.
Yeah,
and the thing freaking crawls out of the ground, and
you're just kind of wondering, why is this happening? It just again, I know I like realism in my fiction, but you're just like, why is this happening? They're just trying to compete with the first one, and I think they just tried too hard.
Yeah, there were a lot of directions that it took that it just shouldn't have, and also the first thing too is like it's a new set of characters. The Evil Dead is good because of Ash.
Yes,
not solely.
No, but
it should not and does not exist without the icon of Bruce Campbell as Ash.
Exactly.
And so I think that also was a disconnect for me. Is like there are plenty of series that like exist without a specific actor. Like Friday the 13th, you could remake as many times as you want.
Well, they did.
And have a new set of like actors. Jason is the villain, so you always need Jason, duh. But it's not like there's anyone from the first Friday the 13th that you're like, oh, they're the main hero of it. They need to be in all of them.
Kevin Bacon.
It's Kevin Bacon in his Speedo. That shows way too much. But like that's
Right.
That's the appeal of the Evil Dead
Well,
trilogy.
it's like
Ash.
Star Wars without Darth Vader.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's wrong.
yes,
It's just incorrect. And I honestly I liked the second Evil Dead remake more. I don't think you've seen it yet. Evil Dead Rise.
Is that you were telling me about? Is that where they're in an apartment?
They're in an apartment complex.
See,
and
I don't know if I'd like that only because, again, you told me that it really has nothing to do with the Evil Dead.
See, that's why it's so hard to explain. That's why I liked it, is because it was the very first, I mean, I guess other than Army of Darkness, it was the first one in the series to really do something different. At the same time, I think the reason that I liked it was because it's fine. It's good as a standalone movie. If you have it's almost, I almost wonder if it's better if you watch it without even knowing about the Evil Dead.
So,
because the only relation in it is the mom is a Deadite, and they find the Necronomicon in like this underground thing and look at it. That is it.
Those are my two questions. Are there Deadites and are there Necronomicons?
Yeah, that's the only two things that relate to it. And the Deadite, it takes on different forms, and there's like, I think it becomes like a big creature mass at the end too, which is like a little out there. But like that's what I liked about it, is I was able to take myself out of the Evil Dead mindset and just watch it as a movie.
Okay.
So in a sense, if you want to watch it as an Evil Dead movie, it probably sucks really bad.
Well,
but if you watch it as just it's a horror movie, it's a good movie.
All right.
Well,
I guess in my opinion, if you're going to throw a title like Evil Dead on it,
you have to, yeah.
And you just said they found the book where?
It was buried in like an underground, parking place at the apartment complex.
See, again, going back to the original, it's in a basement of a cabin in the middle of nowhere, Michigan. So how did it get to a parking lot?
Exactly.
Especially, okay, so what's the name of it again?
Evil Dead Rise.
I
don't even know why that's
sequel
the title
to the remake, or is it just
no?
Oh,
it's not a sequel. It's its own thing.
Gotcha.
It's like technically in the universe of the Evil Dead, probably, but it's like it's its own entity. It's just like it's a film that quickly borrows two things from the Evil Dead movie, and that's it. It's like, here, can we sneak these in? Everything else is different. And I told you about this. There's a new one coming up. I can't remember what it's called. Evil Dead Burn. Oh, I don't remember what it's called. But they're just now kind of announcing it and starting production for it. I really hope it's good. It will be my very first Evil Dead theater experience, which I'm very excited for. Theater experiences, I love theater experiences. Yes. And I've never, and I've never watched an Evil Dead movie in theaters. So this will, I mean, I'm quite excited for it, even if it's bad, and I have a very strong feeling it will be bad.
Do you know what it's about?
I have no idea what it's about. I just know that they announced its title and some of the random cast people, but it's no one really that we would know. But
any release date?
Huh?
Any release date?
I don't know. I think 2026.
No, it's not too far off.
So
no, I was unaware of that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about the musical, so I don't. Yeah, I'm not able to touch on that.
Guess I didn't even know there was a musical.
But overall, that's kind of the entirety of all of the Evil Deads. I have a couple little questions or fun facts here that we could go through for like 5-10 minutes, and then we can call it.
Okay.
Let's see here. So, firstly, this is a very, very broad question, but I'll do it anyway. What do you think makes the Evil Dead trilogy stand out from other horror franchises?
I would say what they were able to accomplish with such a low budget.
Exactly where I'm going with it too.
Even like well, correct me if I'm wrong, Halloween, wasn't that an independent film? The first one?
I think so, yeah. I think was that what got John Carpenter on the map?
His name was on the original Halloween was called John Carpenter's Halloween.
And he does that with John Carpenter's The Thing. Maybe he doesn't. Oh. Does he? No. Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. But just, I mean, you've made movies with no money.
Yep.
You've had to record at 4 a.m.
Yep.
I mean, that's what these guys, they had no money.
So they just had to,
and they just went out in the woods and they found a cabin to rent and they did it. And yeah, just that they were able to, again, going back to the first one, the first one is a full-on horror movie. I mean, there are funny parts in it, but I don't think they're meant to be funny like in the second one. So again, just accomplishing what they could on such a low budget.
Well, and that's why I was going to say is what makes it so iconic is the low budgetness of it.
Yes.
And going back now to thinking about the remakes, I didn't really think of this, but just now talking about it, like Bruce Campbell, the Deadites, everything, like that's the appeal of it. But also, Evil Dead isn't Evil Dead without the crappy low budgetness of it.
The zooming camera.
The camera, yeah. Like maybe that's part of why it didn't quite click with the 2013 remake or the new one as Evil Dead. It's like it's a big studio feature budget film. Yep. So it's like there are flaws, not really technically much flaws, but like story-wise and just random idea-wise there's flaws. But I mean, yeah. So I think that's definitely what makes it stand out though. So this one isn't necessarily asking your favorite, but if you could only recommend one of the films to a newcomer, which would it be?
Oh boy, that is tough. Because again, they're kind of all three different.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one,
which is so crazy because they're also the exact same too.
Yes.
They're so different
excellent point.
also being the same.
Yep. I mean, the first one again, full on horror movie, low budget. Second one, horror comedy, and the third one, medieval. I would recommend. Okay, I would probably recommend the second one because it is of all of the people that have quoted it. And
that's kind of named as like the most of the series one.
Because when you think of Evil Dead, most people think of Ash with a chainsaw on his arm. And that doesn't happen until episode 2 or the second one. So I would say recommend 2. My favorite, probably the first one.
Yeah. For me, I would also say recommend 2, but there's a small part of me that's like, I recommend the first one because if you get hooked on that, you'll be hooked on the rest of the series.
Correct.
Like if you can, like a lot of people could watch the second one, but I don't think but not watch the first one. Like I think there's such a big production quality shift from the first to the second.
Money.
That, like I don't know that many people would be able to just like sit through the first one.
After the second one?
Like if someone were to watch the second one and then go back,
gotcha.
I think it would be a bit of a challenge to watch it. So there's a small part of me that's like, oh, maybe the first, but I think the second encapsulates the series the best. I also think the second one is probably my favorite. You reminded me about a con that I had with the third one. The chainsaw was not in it that much.
Just the beginning.
Which bothered me a lot.
Yes.
Like that was what everyone knows.
Yes.
If you know Evil Dead, you know the long dolly in leading up to the chainsaw, Ash pulling it and saying groovy.
Yes.
That's the most encapsulation of the Evil Dead, and it wasn't really used in the third one, except at the beginning.
They did a total Luke Skywalker and put a metal hand on it.
I was a little sad by that. Yep. I wish they had kept up with the chainsaw. We touched on this, but if you have one, what was your favorite Raimi camera trick or visual gag across the trilogy?
Again, not gag, but I was impressed with the whole camera behind the clock pendulum in the first one. Again, I mean, to me, it was very Hitchcock-ish.
Yeah.
And again, someone's probably done that before, but it's the first time I noticed it. And I kind of paused and I just went, oh, that's cool.
That's cool.
I mean, just the way they shot that. And can I add a second one? And of course, the
camera,
the POV, with the sound.
That's that's got to be mine too.
Yeah, the way that thing zooms around.
It's just so cool. I think you don't have it without the sound though. That's something too that I notice in everyone you watch. It's always like super intense, super intense. Yep. Nothing. Super like it. That back and forth is also part of what makes it so good. Like the camera aspect of it.
When you say the Evil Dead, do you not hear that
exactly?
It's like whatever that whatever that sound is. It's kind of like Jaws. You say Jaws, and people just hear dun.
And that's so cool too. Is like it's a POV freaking camera shot, but it feels like it's a character that has life and
whatever
meaning,
demon or ghosts are out in those woods. Yes,
so cool. I guess I don't remember all of them, and maybe you don't either, but which Deadite attack scene is the most disturbing or effective? I guess there's, the tree one. It's kind of crazy, but
would that be a Deadite?
But that's
though?
not Deadite, necessarily.
When it was the first one, and the girlfriend is in the cellar, and it wasn't really attack, but she's just laughing and screaming.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
and it's just, that is disturbing.
The girl just sitting cross-legged, looking up, smiling with the white eyes freaked me out. It is really hard for me nowadays as like an adult to really be frightened by something. And I would never go as far as to say like I was freaked out, but I was like watching that. I was like, ugh, like that's gross. Well, and that's creepy.
That's what I'm saying. Going back to when I saw it, I saw it in 83, 84, 85. So I'm 13, 14. It freaked me out.
Yeah. Yep. So, I think my favorite one comes from the first one as well, and it's when it's Ash and his best friend, the other. Well, I don't know if it's best friend, the other guy that's there. When they first go, it's like two guys.
The first one,
2 guys and 3 girls, or 2 guys and 2 girls. Either way, in the first one, yeah. It's Ash and the guy versus the guy's girlfriend. And I remember watching it by myself and being in the studio, and I had to just keep turning the volume down because she never stops screaming. There's like a 10-minute period where the volume is just maxed out with this girl just like shrieking for like 10 minutes straight. And it has such a disturbing effect because it's just nonstop and it's like so intense.
And that goes back to doing it on a low budget and making it work. Okay, let's just have her scream for 10 minutes. Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is your most... You asked me what Deadite attack, or what is your, just in any 3, cringeworthy moment?
Ooh, like as in cringeworthy, like
you just kind of go,
like, yeah. I want to say the girl with her eyes open doing that was probably the most effect it had on me. Like her just sitting, it was really creepy.
Mine?
What's yours? I think that would be mine.
The pencil in the ankle.
Oh yeah,
when that pencil goes through, and it's like this brown blood, and you're just like, and you're like holding your own ankle.
And also that, and then at the end of the first one, when the bodies are stop motion shifting, and there's like cockroaches and green bubbles and blood, and that is nasty too.
Yes, it is.
I think that was probably second. The 3 we've mentioned are probably the most intense ones. So again, going back to the first one, definitely the scariest, definitely the most disturbing.
Yes.
What else? They've already tried, but if the trilogy were made today, what do you think the studio would try to change?
I would think they would try to make the humor, I've used this term a lot, but campy.
Yeah.
I think they would, I don't really know how to explain it, but they would try to modernize the humor. And in my opinion, they don't have to.
Yep. And this last one I had highlighted, which we touched on. Would Evil Dead ever work as a serious reboot, or does it need to be weird and funny to work?
I think with just the name Evil Dead, it can't be serious. It's got to be just a over the top gross. I mean, that's why it's called the Evil Dead.
Yep. I'm like back and forth on that one because I completely agree with it. At the same time, I would like to see a very serious adaptation to see what it's like, because like I said, the Fede Alvarez 2013 one, it tried at some points, but then also leaned into being campy at others. So I think it always, if you put an Evil Dead on label on it, it always needs to be serious. But there's a part of me that's like, I want to see a genuinely like horrific, disturbing, very serious, moody toned Evil Dead. Though I don't think I would like it as much.
Okay.
But yeah, do you have anything else? I don't have much else.
No. Are you gonna watch Ash versus?
I am. I don't know when, but I definitely am.
Okay.
I want to get into it.
Well, we've touched on it a few times. Just watch it just for fun.
Yep.
There's no redeeming quality other than this is just fun, laughable horror. Entertainment. That's all it is entertainment, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good.
Yep.
And good entertainment.
Yeah. And to wrap it up, that's also what I would ask anyone who's watching this or listening to this. Yes. That's what I would ask you as an audience to do. Go into any of these movies.
Yes.
Just ready to be entertained. Yep. That is simply all you need to bring with you. All you need to bring with you, and maybe some popcorn. But yeah, this is probably my favorite trilogy I've seen. Honestly,
and don't forget, this is the early 80s. There's
that too. Be forgiving.
Yeah, there is no CGI. This is all practical effects, which even in 2025, I'll take practical effects over CGI any day.
I will as well. That's one of the best, most standout things about this movie is the practicality with it, or all of these movies. But yeah, that's the Evil Dead trilogy wrapped up in about an hour and 15 minutes. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to check me out at my socials. I'll list them down in the description. Yeah, that's the Evil Dead.
It is
awesome. Thanks for doing this.
You're very welcome.
I'm so glad we finally got around to this, and we need to figure out what's next.
I was just gonna say, when are you bringing back? What movies should I rewatch?
What horror movies? I'm trudging my way through the Friday the 13th series.
There's the thing.
There is the thing. The thing has a lot to talk about.
And the prequel.
Yes, the thing with the prequel could be a good idea, because I haven't seen the prequel yet, and I'm so nervous to watch it because I think I'm going to hate it so much.
Here's a preview. Normally, I can't stand prequels.
But you liked the prequel, The Thing.
I thought it was fitting.
I would like to watch it. I would really like to watch it. I just have such a very specific, precious love for this. Is in my like. I'm making an alien film right now, an alien feature film. This is this plus Alien is what like has inspired that. So there's a very touchy, specific love that I have for this film, and I'm so scared that if I watch the remake, it's gonna ruin that love for it.
It's not a remake though,
or the prequel. I mean, but
all right,
but yeah.
Well, I recommend it.
But maybe we'll dive into that. Like I said, I'm on number 3 or 4 of the Friday the 13th series. I'm trudging my way through those. I'll finish them at some point, but that's a long one.
Like,
it also gets so dumb.
From 5 to...
I was going to say, I've heard 4 is like one of the best.
I think 4 was my favorite.
Okay. I'm coming up on it.
And after you see up to 4, I'll explain why. But
yeah. Anyway, so maybe we'll get more horror movies with us, because you're the one I have to talk about horror movies. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening to the Hard Cut Podcast.